Now, these are pieces, and they're really deep pieces ingrained within us. In order to change that pattern, you have to really start to kind of feel out what occurs, and in what way is an okay way to be treated, and what way is not an okay way to be treated. Now, you want to be setting these guidelines for yourself and for the scenarios in your life way before they get to that point where you're in it. And never, and I'm going to say this very strongly, never make yourself feel bad or that you were wrong for, let's say that you go into a scenario and you're working on cultivating, like, I am just going to remind myself when I'm in a scenario that is not okay, when I'm being yelled at, when I'm being rejected, when my feelings are and I am not being respected or heard. I always, it does not matter what scenario it is. It does not matter if we are in a kitchen, and I'm saying more relationships, but this can be friendships, this can be family dynamics, this can be in all sorts of interesting scenarios. This can be a stranger who is also just triggered and projecting onto you their realities. You always have the option to opt out. You do not have to be polite. You do not need to, when you are being attacked, whatever level, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, which can also be represented as energetically, you don't need to stay there. That is not in your best interest. And to be perfectly honest, it's not in the best interest of that other individual or even that group of people. And I'm going to say that because they have their stuff that they're going to need to deal with. You're not going to be able to help them with that. But you not taking it is not feeding into their delusion that they are somehow, because this is what I have started to understand, that they somehow feel like they need to teach, or that they're teaching, or that they're controlling. That's pretty much what I think the foundation is they are controlling the situation by controlling the person and their emotional response. Whew. So within that, we're going to start to break that down. And I just shared that story so that you can understand. And again, it doesn't have to be to that extreme. It can be, and it's great to work within some gentle dynamics, even just a little bit of conflict where perhaps you were having, let's take it more to a family dynamic. You were having a discussion, which there is lots of them. It's just part of being in a family dynamic. You were having a discussion and there you weren't agreeing. There was a disagreement of some sort. That can cause a certain amount of emotional energy to be lifted. And if you're starting to feel yourself and starting to notice signs and symptoms, so for some of us, and again, there's such a multitude. It really truly is an understanding of getting to know thyself. But it can be pieces like tapping your foot, or touching a part of your body, sometimes massaging your body. It can be where you're holding your breath. Signs and symptoms can be where you, like physical, actual signs and symptoms can be where you start to get a headache, or your heart starts to race. And maybe you don't even realize, maybe you're not even in the situation yet, but you notice that as you start to go down a certain lineage of or topic, these signs start to come up. It's almost like your preemptive nervous system is recognizing that something is coming energetically, even before words really have spoken. So that's something to really be mindful of as well. Now, it doesn't always mean that you need to turn around and run the other direction. I'm going to really reinstate, this is not a flee response either, because there sometimes needs to be conflict and dealing with those uncomfortable situations. You have to really begin, and again, we can work through that. This is just a very beginning broach into the subject, but we can work on that as we go. However, the most important foundational piece is, okay, I'm here. This is what I'm feeling in my body. I'm not going to turn this all off. In fact, I'm going to lean into it more. I'm going to get curious. Okay, my heart is racing. My head is starting to feel pounding. I'm tapping my fingers, or I'm tapping my toes. To be honest, these are my symptoms. These are my signs. These are my pieces. I start to really recognize that my literal tummy, my gut, my whole upper body just begins to to activate or begins to tighten in response to whatever it's going to need to do. And as soon as I start to feel these signs and symptoms occurring, first of all, my very first piece, and it's become so habitual now that I almost recognize it as a sign, is I take a deep breath. And I take that breath, and that has become a habit for me where I recognize, okay, I'm already starting to go down and list off the tools that I have that are going to, one, take me out of that fight and flight, and my most common one is freeze, and it's going to bring me back into my body. It's going to bring me back into my body through my breath. And as I bring that breath in, as I take, and again, it's one inhale, not even 5, 10 seconds worth of time, but it will change everything on how you proceed forward from that space.